We are joined by the CFO of the company, Mr. S. Ramesh. Thank you so much, sir, for joining Bloomberg Quint. I would, like to start with the US business. That has seen a 26% drop in the first quarter this time, and after a very long time, we have seen the run rate for Lupin per quarter being below $200 million in the US market. What has led to such a fall, and what really were the factors that impacted your US business?
Yeah, obviously we're not very happy with, in fact, our US performance, but this is not, it's not as though it was thoroughly unexpected. We have been saying that the performance in the US has been a little lackluster because of, in fact, the lack of, good launches during the course of this year itself. But I'll come to that later. If we talk about specifically the first quarter, three things have actually led to, in fact, the decline in, in overall turnover there. The first was because of, in fact, Methergine going generic. The second is because of price erosion on, in fact, the Metformin franchise. And third, because of, in fact, the flu season being over, Tamiflu and other products, were, in fact, much lower. For all of these reasons, in fact, there was, in fact, a dip in turnover in Q1. But that said, it's not actually indicative of things to come in the coming quarters. We're still pretty optimistic about the rest of the year. We have got quite a few products lined up, which includes levothyroxine as well as Ranexa, which is going to be in the second half of the year. And of course, we're fairly confident about the ramp up on Secnidazole, which we launched, in fact, in June. So whilst there has been a disappointing performance in Q1, we believe that's an aberration, and it's not gloom and doom. And there are things which will most certainly make it much better during the course of this year.
And Mr. Ramesh, how do you see the balance, FY19 shape up? Do you think the US business has bottomed in terms of the revenue growth, and now we could see some good run rate in the coming quarters?
That's exactly what I was trying to explain to you. We have some products lined up for, in fact, the second half of the year, which includes levothyroxine and Ranexa, and we do expect, Secnidazole to ramp up. And that certainly, these are reasons for optimism. And when it comes to, in fact, price erosion, we do firmly believe that the industry has seen the worst of it all, and there are better days ahead. And it's not merely Lupin which is saying this. If you look at, in fact, the competition as well as, in fact, the channel partners have been saying that they believe that price erosion is kind of stabilized now. And we ourselves are witnessing, in fact, a price erosion of just about a single-digit numbers.
Mr. Ramesh, if you could see, the margins for the first quarter, they have come in at a multi-year low of 14%. Earlier, you had guided for 18 to 20% EBITDA margin level for the full year. So are you on track to meet the full year guidance for the margins?
When we say EBITDA margins, we include, in fact, the other income portion, which includes, in fact, forex as well as, in fact, duty drawbacks and the like. Whilst your estimate actually takes that off. From our perspective, in fact, the guidance always included that. So if you look at our anchoring point, it's including that, and to that extent, we are well on track when it comes to our guidance of between 18 and 20%. This is exactly what we achieved this quarter, also at 18.89%.
Okay. And sir, the other income for the quarter was close to 184 crores versus a figure of 32 crores last year. What contributed to such a high other income? If you could just give us a breakup.
It's, as I said, so there is, of course, forex, which is part of that. So that's essentially that. We also have some settlement income which has come in. So both of these have contributed to, in fact, those portions going up.
Okay. And sir, if you could tell us about geographies like the Japanese market, how well do you see it shaping up in the rest of the year?
There is actually a shift in the Japanese markets also. In fact, the pricing regime is actually shifted. As you would know, there used to be a price cut which happened every 2 years. They're now going in for a regime which is going to be a price cut every year. And to that extent, there has been a price cut which has been absorbed in this result as well. It's to the extent of about 10 to 11%. But there has been tremendous volume growth also. But overall, I know the market is, is going through rapid, shifting of sands, so to speak, and a new price regime and its impact will obviously be felt in the course of this year.
Okay. Mr. Ramesh, what I could find in your first quarter earnings is that your R&D spend has come down drastically. So on the R&D front, do you expect a similar run rate of Q1 to continue, which means that you will be ending up spending lower on R&D? That is question number one. And also, if you could tell us in terms of the currency tailwind that you have, do you expect both lower R&D spends and the currency bit to contribute positively to your overall operating performance in the coming quarters?
So when it comes to the R&D, so we recorded about 10% of sales as in fact the R&D figure. As you would know, we've been working with consultants to actually work on productivity of R&D and with in fact a host of other initiatives as well. That's contributed somewhat. The second part of that is also the fact that it's obviously the outcomes are that we would like to make the R&D dollar run a longer mile. The second aspect to that is that we are also working with financial investors who take away the risk of in fact the R&D initiatives, but at the same time share in the overall benefit that could come. That has the outcome of lowering the R&D spends insofar as we are concerned. Both of these together have actually helped in containing the R&D spend to around 10%. Going forward, we believe that this is the way it would be for the next 3 quarters as well. Speaking about, in fact, forex headwinds, of course, it certainly helps us a lot. Rupee depreciation has helped all pharmaceutical companies and, for that matter, all exporters, and we've also benefited by that. So, of course, having a tight leash on costs, including R&D, and of course, forex, tailwinds will certainly help in contributing to the bottom line in the coming quarters.
And sir, one final question on the US FDA front, how is really the plant remediation working for you?
It's gone up very well. So we worked with, in fact, world-class consultants to actually have all the remedial measures in place. We have been giving them periodic updates of that. The final report went out there about a month ago. So we are expecting them to come and inspect the facilities anytime now, and we do believe that we would get a final clearance by the end of this calendar itself.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ramesh, for speaking to Bloomberg Quint and taking out your time. All the best for the coming quarters. So that was the management of Lupin, hopeful of a recovery in the coming quarters, and probably they believe that the first quarter earnings were a bit of aberration because of the pressure in the US market.